Entertainment Soldier here, and I'm back to talk about Star Trek Strange New World, Season 2, Episode 3, and my thoughts on this episode. Boring, missed opportunities, and if this episode had been done right, it could have been a good episode, because I'm actually massively interested in the premise of the episode. The whole, if you had a chance to kill Hitler, would you do it? And if you did it, what would be the implications on the human timeline? So it's a very interesting premise, this episode. It's just executed really, really poorly. I mean, very poorly executed. We take too long to get to the point. It takes so long for characters to figure out plans. And it was very boring. I mean, very boring. And Kirk, who is in this episode, I'm sorry, but you have to explain that casting. Again, it's terrible. Terrible casting. He looks nothing like William Shatner. Absolutely nothing like him. And his acting in this episode. Listen, if he was playing any other character, a new character, it would have been interesting, the relationship between him and Lyanna. It would have been very interesting. But when you're making this character play James T. Kirk, he does not measure up. He was not right for this role. So that's a big minus in this episode. So again, but there was potential here. If it had been done right, I could have said a good episode. But we also have problems in the fact they've left a lot of open doors in this episode. They didn't explain everything. And, well, we're getting Enterprise problems in this episode. Now, I'll go into that into spoilers, but if you've watched the episode, you know what I mean when I say Enterprise spoilers. I mean, not spoilers, Enterprise problems. Because we all know what the biggest problem with that series was. And, yeah, they went the same way with this one episode. So, overall, I am disappointed with the episode. I'm not pissed off. I will not say this episode was woke. There was nothing woke in this episode. It was just a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Just that. So, I'm not going to be harsh with the scoring. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to say, listen, Lyanna, she was an actually good character in this episode. I really did enjoy her acting. Yes, the problem in this episode were mainly to do with the writing and not her. So, for the fact Lyanna, they gave her a very good arc. I will give this episode a 5 out of 10. That's the best. That's the best I could do. A 5 out of 10. So let's go into spoilers now. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So the episode starts off with Lyanna going through her day being head of security on the Enterprise. You know, all the crap she has to deal with, like reports, missing objects, dealing with crewmen who are being a bit ridiculous. They tried to have this stupid moment with Spock again, where someone complains about his music and Spock just he just tried to say, I'll try to play my Vulcan instrument a little quieter in the future, with the obvious look in his face of being pissed off. But then Lyanna goes into some random corridor, and then something just appears out of nowhere. I mean, someone just appears out of nowhere And when she goes over to help the person who's wearing 21st century clothing, he hands her some sort of object, tells her that he's was on a mission in the past and it's now up to her to save humanity, and that she needs to get out to the bridge, and then he dies because of wounds from a bullet, because Lyanna sees the wounds on him and sees it's not a phaser, it's a pistol, or it's a bullet that's impacted him, and the person dies. She then runs up to the bridge where we see fake Kirk is in command of the Enterprise. Yay, we have James T. Kirk back. I'm sorry, I'm not moving off of this. He looks nothing like William Shatner. He acts nothing like him. Who was in charge of the fucking casting? That is such a bad fucking casting. I know I've said that multiple times, but look at the fucking guy. He looks nothing like William Shatner in any way. How the fuck? At least the guy who plays Spock at least looks like Spock. I mean, a younger version, but at least you can tell. With this guy, I mean, by the way, it takes 20 minutes for them to say, I think, his name. I don't know if he does introduce himself to Lyanna in the first meeting they have. But you never hear his name. And if you don't hear the fact that this guy is James T. Kirk, you would never know it. I mean, you really wouldn't. And it's just, again, it's just really bad casting. So, Lyanna's on the bridge. Kirk pretty much says, what are you doing on my ship? And Lyanna's kind of confused because he shouldn't be in command of the Enterprise. They then go to the credits, and after the credits, it turns out they're receiving a signal from a Vulcan ship. And it turns out the captain of the Vulcan ship is Spock. Yay! And he's asking for assistance because the war between the Vulcans and the Romulans is going badly. And Kirk says he's sorry to hear that, but they can't assist because the war between Earth and the Klingon Empire seems to be going badly as well. So they have to leave the Vulcans to their fate, which it turns out that their fleet's been nearly destroyed, and what's left of their fleet is not enough to stop a Romulan invasion of Vulcan. So, but unfortunately Kirk can't help. So, whilst we're dealing with this scene, I was kind of thinking maybe we'd see an episode where, you know, we'd see what happened in this kind of alternative universe. You know, humans on their own. Oh no, we haven't got to that point yet. Forget that. Let's just get on to it. So, they pretty much leave Spock to his fate, basically, and have to let him die, basically. They can't help him at all. And then Lyanna pretty much goes over to Kirk and says, yeah, we need to talk in private. So they go off the bridge to his quarters, and Lyanna tries to ask what's going on here, and well, they don't really do that either, because Lyanna just starts talking, and Kirk then starts talking. They don't really try to figure out stuff. You know, like, where's he from? Where's she from? Like, why is humans and Vulcans not working together? Why is there only humans on the Federation starship? Oh, turns out it's not a Federation starship, because we find out later humanity didn't form the Federation. They are in a human-only alliance. So, but it takes Lyanna so long to get any information out, because as soon as they start talking to each other, Kirk's already grabbed a device from Lyanna, the device that's transported her here into this timeline, and then Kirk just transports them to the next objective. It turns out the time agents put some sort of mechanic into this, or a setting into this. Like, when the two of them are together and one of them activates it, it will send them on the mission to go stop whatever's happened. And in this time, Lyanna hasn't tried to figure out what's gone wrong, or try to find out what's the difference in their two timelines. Like, what changed the destiny of time? Like, where's the event? It takes them so fucking long to figure out why the timelines changed. Now, we've done this sort of thing in Star Trek a lot. Okay? Especially in Enterprise. Like I said in the non-spoiler part, the problems of Enterprise, which was the Time War. Because that was a very stupid thing for Enterprise. I mean, even the people in Enterprise have admitted that was a dumb idea to have a Time War. So, I don't see why Strange New Worlds is trying to bring that sort of thing into Strange New Worlds when most of the fucking fans hated that, I being one of them. But now we're here and we're dealing with this. It takes so long for Lyanna to try to figure out the point of change. Like, what was the event that changed, the timeline? It really got ridiculous for me. I mean, why the hell does it take you an entire day just to ask Kirk what happened in his timeline that might have changed the time? It's just really weird it took that long. I'm sorry. But anyway, Kirk activates the device. They get sent into the 21st century. They turn out to have been sent to Toronto in Canada. And we then get this kind of weird moment where they're now in the 21st century. And we're doing the whole bullshit of they've gone back in time. They need to get some clothes. They need to have money. And they need to figure out how to get all these things. So they go to a shop. We get this supposed to be funny moment when Lyanna and Kirk wear the same outfit. When they realise they can't buy the clothes, they then decide to shoplift basically and frame a woman so they can get past security. And then Kirk has some sort of weird moment when we all kind of have a weird moment because apparently Kirk is like a master chess player. And just manages to have so many matches that he makes a shitload of money from it. Okay. Oh, we had the awkward moment also in the trailer, where Kirk couldn't use revolving doors. Yeah, that happened. But anyway, yeah, so Kirk's a master chess player. He wins a shitload of money. He buys Lyanna and him some hot dogs. And you can kind of see there's some sort of romantic thing going on between Lyanna and Kirk. I mean, again, if this was a real Kirk, if this was a real portrayal of Kirk would have kind of, it would have been a bit more obvious. It would have been a bit more, enjoyable to watch, I would say. Because in this, it kind of just felt a little bit robotic between them most of the time. So the guy playing Kirk, it just doesn't come off as Kirk. It just comes off as a kind of crappier version. I'm sorry, that's my opinion. So, they've been in Toronto now for a couple of hours. They've played chess. They've gotten clothes. Have they now decided to, sit down with each other and start to make a plan or to figure out what they're doing here or what has changed the timeline? No, they just go to bed. They somehow find a hotel and they just go to bed. That's what happens. Sorry. Oh God, you've been there for nearly 24 hours and you just go to bed. You don't sit down with each other. You don't try to see the histories, like, did World War II happen? Did World War III happen? Like, what happened that changed the timelines? It takes them forever to get to that point. This is so ridiculous. Again, we've seen this story in Star Trek so many times. How is this the worst one? I might be doing a downgrade. It might be going to a 4 if it gets... Anyway. So, the next morning, Lyanna decides to finally have the talk with Kirk about how the timeline's changed. But then Kirk kind of realises, yeah, but why would I want to change the timeline? Because if I change the timeline, I erase myself and my history. And it kind of surprises Lyanna, but I was kind of like, he's kind of got a point. Like, yes, Lyanna, your timeline is better, but his timeline is still a timeline, and if he does what you want, he will be erasing himself. So, Lyanna kind of tries to challenge him and says, my timeline's better than your one, but he doesn't care because, again, that's his timeline. And then she mentions Sam, Kirk's brother, and that seems to surprise Kirk because it looks like Kirk might have died in his timeline, so that apparently manages to push him in the direction of helping her fix the timeline to save Sam. But you wouldn't know it because they never mention that again. And Kirk just seems to be completely happy with getting rid of his timeline after that. Which again, I would say is just bad writing. And you can't just say his brother's dead, or at least imply his brother's dead, and then say that Kirk has a problem with the changing timelines and not really mention it again. Kind of seems a bit shit. It just seems like shitty writing. But at that exact moment, the bridge in Toronto explodes. It might be a terrorist attack. We don't really figure out what happened. They then go to the bridge because they kind of realise that must be where the timeline diverge thing was. But it turns out this attack happened in both their timelines, even though it was an alien who blew up the... Anyway, so they go to the bridge. They see the part of the bridge that exploded be put into a van. Lyanna recognises the explosion pattern on a bit of the concrete. It's a futuristic bomb. Again, a futuristic bomb, but both timelines. I hate timeline stuff. I really do, because nobody can get it right. I mean, it's really rare in Star Trek. They don't get it perfectly right, but in this episode, it kind of just feels like they really should. The writers of Strange New Worlds, you're not really good at writing. At least you're not perfect at it. You really should stay away from time travel. You really need to. Anyway, so they've put the concrete in the van. I forgot the whole... an important character just going to turn up. Lyanna asks a random girl, to borrow a camera, or at least can she show them pictures that she's taken of the explosion. And the girl's just completely happy. Well, not completely happy, but shows them the pictures. She asks her to zoom in on one of the pictures, finds out it was a futuristic bomb that caused the explosion. They then leave the girl, and they then have to try to follow the van that's got all this crucial evidence into it. And what was surprising to me is this van with the crucial evidence of the bomb plot has no police security. None at all. And when the van then decides... I forgot to mention the whole red car fiasco thing. Yeah, Kirk apparently learnt how to use the Vulcan nerve pinch in jail. A Denobulan jail with a Vulcan. So they knock out some random guy, take his sports car, chase after the black van, and then the black van just goes insane. We don't understand why, by the way. They never explain that. The black van just goes insane and drives off, and Kirk tries to chase it. We did have the awkward bit when Kirk didn't know how to drive a car, which was supposed to be funny. It really wasn't. But then all of a sudden, Kirk can drive like a fucking... like anybody. I mean, he just got it like that. That seems kind of weird. You might want to have a little bit of a a sentence where Kirk said, "Oh yes, I used to drive muscle cars on a ship or something." He's like, "I've been around cars most of my life," to show that he understands this technology. So I don't know why they can't just do that. Anyway, they chase after the van, but they then get stopped by Toronto police. And when they arrest them, or at least try to arrest them, we do get this kind of cringe-worthy scene where the girl with the camera, who had the camera, then starts to shout at the police and tell them they're on live stream, and that Kirk's apparently a civil rights lawyer, and just basically all the crazy shit you hear from the leftists about, what police and shit are like. And so the police just buckle and just say, whatever, you broke the law, but we don't want all this problem bullshit. You can go away with a warning, and then they just run off. Which I kind of just... That was just kind of shit. I'm sorry, there needs to be a bit more of a reason for the police just to let someone go, get away with a crime, than it's just awkward for the police to deal with. Because come on, that's not reality. Let's be serious. But the police leave. The girl with the camera comes over and kind of turns out to be some sort of alien nutcase. I'm not alien nutcase. A kind of... Well, a nutcase who believes aliens are trying to stop the growth of humanity. JFK assassination, bridges being blown up. And she has all these pictures and stuff. And she wants to work with these two because they've apparently figured out what she's figured out. This was an alien attack on humanity. And when she starts to walk away, Kirk then shouts to her, my girlfriend, my wife, Lyanna, pretend that she's his wife, was abducted by aliens. And then Lyanna confirms and says, yes, I was abducted. We want to fight these alien people and save humanity and all this bullshit. They go to some cafe, they swap notes with each other, and they figure out where the black van went, or where the person who was next to the explosion. They figured out this one person was next to the explosion before it happened. He must be involved. They find the building, I think, or something. And, they then just leave the woman and head off to try to figure out. I'm actually kind of forgetting a few things. Again, this episode was kind of boring and I kind of shut my eyes for a little bit. Hold on for a second. Okay, I'm back. I just had to rewatch the scene. So, basically what happened to the scene, she shows, Kirk and Lyanna pictures. Kirk figures out one of the ships in one of the images is a Romulan ship, and then figures out in this time there was an explosion from a reactor in Toronto which caused a major incident, and it might have been the start of the Romulan War between humans and Romulans. So apparently the Romulans have time travel now. So they now need to find the reactor, but unfortunately they left in a massive hurry from the Enterprise, so they don't have a tricorder. So they need to either make one or find someone who can make one. And at the beginning of the episode, Lyanna met up with Pella, that alien who's been alive for ages, that old woman with the crazy hair. Yeah, she apparently told Lyanna about her hideaway in Vermont or somewhere. So they head off to her because they think that she's apparently she's a engineer genius. So Lyanna thinks they go to see her. She can build them a tricorder. They can find the destination of the reactor, and they can stop whatever happens and save the future. So they head off to Vermont. They get there. Lyanna knocks on the door. It takes them a bunch of hours to get there. Pelia answers the door, refuses to talk to them, but then Lyanna tells her about that she knows a secret, that she knows she's an alien, that she knows she's lived for a long time, and she lets them in. Then Lyanna asks for her help to build a tricorder. Then she pretty much drops the bombshell. She doesn't know shit about engineering. Okay, so a wasted trip then. But then somehow when they keep talking to each other about ways to kind of find a reactor, she mentions about some divers' watches, that the chemicals inside them are drawn to reactors or something. And then Lyanna puts a plan together. They take a watch that she has, and that's how they figure out a way to kind of locate the reactor. So they head back to Toronto. They find a building that apparently has a reactor in it because the watch tells them. And when they get to the building is called Noonien Singh. So apparently the building with the reactor into it is Lyanna's ancestors' building. Okay. And at this point, I did realise we might be going to see a certain person. So, it's a Singh building. She then puts her hand on some key device that opens the door, and then at that same moment, the crazy woman who believes in aliens turns out to be a Romulan spy and points a gun at them. And she pretty much admits that this has been her entire plan to get into the Noonien Singh building so that she can destroy the reactor and stop the process of humanity. So the Romulans have time travel, and they've been sending agents back to stunt the growth of humanity to stop them building the Federation. Okay. And where's the time agency in this? Because they also get mentioned. But, okay, again, this was the biggest problems of Star Trek Enterprise. The time stuff was just ridiculous, and this episode is probably the worst, again, time war bullshit episode. But anyway, Kirk kind of stands in the way, refuses to let her go in there and destroy the reactor that destroys the timeline of the Federation, and tells her if you fire that pistol, you'll activate all the alarms in the building and you'll never get near the reactor. And the Romulan just doesn't give a shit and shoots, or at least doubts that he said the truth, but shoots him. Kills James T. Kirk. You wouldn't know it, but anyway. Kills James T. Kirk, and then pushes Lyanna through the door, and they walk through security like there were none there. She kills like 5 of them. And then we get to the most important door apparently in human history. And it's Khan's door. Yes, Khan as a child. The guy who's going to be a dictator, mass murderer, just a kid. And apparently, killing Khan destroys humanity, or at least destroys the Federation. Right, they do understand the history of the Federation, right, and the humanity. There wasn't just one dictator, right? Yes, you could kill Khan Singh. I mean, you can kill Khan, but there's a shitload more dictators. There was a shitload more. Killing one dictator would stop the humans, the history of the eugenics wars. No, it would never work like that. Oh my god. Maybe if they could say this Khan kind of gives power to all the other people. It's just, they never explain it. They just say killing Khan stops the worst period in human history, but they don't explain why. Again, there was a bunch of dictators on Earth at that time. It was the eugenics war. There wasn't just one fucking side. There was 2 sides or a couple of sides. This didn't really make sense. killing Khan stops that period from happening? Again, they just don't explain it. So the Romulan agent tries to force Lyanna to open the door. She refuses. Then they have a big fight with each other. Then the Romulan manages to grab Lyanna's hand, throws it on the door, and opens the door. Then Lyanna does some stupid move, grabs the pistol, and shoots the Romulan dead. And the Romulan activates some sort of suicide device that just melts her body. And then Lyanna gets confirmation from the time device that she saved the future. Now at this point, she should have just left, but she wanted to walk in the room and see Khan as a child, and she did. By the way, it turns out Khan is a Canadian. I thought he was from South America personally, but okay. It's just a bit weird. I don't know, it just feels weird. Khan is Canadian now. Okay, so she tries to comfort Khan, you know, the mass murderer who's going to kill and torture millions of people. I mean, it does give you the question. I mean, if you saw Hitler as a child, would you kill him? I mean, I think she probably did have that in her mind about killing Khan, but would you do it? A kid, would that make you worse? Again, that's the interesting questions that you could actually have in this episode, but we never really get that, because when you get to that point, it's too fast. Again, she has to comfort Khan and then just leave. If you had the episode from the start, and Time Agent comes to Lyanna, tells her, you need to protect Khan from these killers, because if you don't, it will destroy humanity's future. The whole episode could have been Lyanna trying to force herself to not kill Khan and just say, this guy who destroyed my history, who destroyed my people, who's pretty much made my name dirt, I could kill him and just save so many people. And then Kirk could have been the person to tell her, you have to let him live. You have to, let this happen. This episode could have been really interesting in that regard, but they never did it. And I get they wanted to have this whole romantic thing between Lyanna and Kirk. You could have done that, but you needed to have Lyanna know the plan from the beginning. That's what you should have done. But Lyanna comforts Khan, puts him to bed, and then she just grabs the device and transports back to her timeline. Goes up to the bridge where Patal is telling Pike that she's not going to hand over the art she stole hundreds of years ago, and then Lyanna just says she's fine, and that they should forgive the painting being stolen. That she's going to head back to her room for God knows what reason. Anyway, sorry. It's just, again, this was such a missed opportunity. Such a missed opportunity. And I'm so pissed off. But she gets back to her room where a time agent is waiting for her. And the time agent thanks Lyanna for her work. Lyanna kind of gets pissed off because Kirk died and they kind of formed a romantic attachment to each other. And she kind of gets angry that the time agency didn't kind of deal with this themselves, but they kind of said, listen, you shouldn't have been involved, but you had to be. You saved the timeline, you saved the Federation, now have a nice day, and I just want to take back our property, so take it back, and then tell her not to tell anybody what happened, and to keep stum, basically. And Lyanna's kind of pissed off about this because she lost Kirk, someone she fell in love with. How can she not tell anybody about that? Because she's now going to have to hide that hurt and her feelings, which is going to be very hard for her. But the time agent pretty much just says, suck it up, and just leaves. And then Lyanna tries to make contact with Kirk, who's Lieutenant Kirk at this point, and makes him an excuse about wanting to know some information about Sam. Kirk tells her about Sam, and how they should get a drink together when they're all on Starbase One with each other. And then Lyanna says that's great, cancels the call, and then starts crying because, again, she loved that other Kirk, and she kind of, I think she realises that Kirk's dead. And the episode ends with the camera heading over to the watch, and then that's the end of the episode. Again, there was potential with this episode. There really was. I think if they had more focus and got to the point of the episode faster, this could have been an interesting episode. But unfortunately, they focused on stupid parts. They wanted to get the comedy in and this whole love affair between Kirk and Lyanna. And again, if you had better writers, you could have done that. But unfortunately, you don't. And again, for me, it's a missed opportunity. I'm still going to give it a 5 out of 10. But it's still gutting. It really is. This could have been good. And that's the end of my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. And if you have a comment, I will definitely try to get back to it. Entertainment Soldier. Bye.